Hey everybody, thank you again for joining. This is going to be part 5 of the Leap Academy series. Today we're actually joined with the all-star crew from Foundation Finance, one of our long-term partners and one of our integrated lenders. They're going to be helping us go through, and the topic today we're going to be touching on builds off of the last one that we did on just the power of financing. We'll touch and recap on what we addressed in part 4 of the Leap Academy, but more importantly, we're going to be talking about one of the bigger pieces today, which is, great, financing is wonderful. We all know that it works, but how do you take the fear out of it? And the fear exists not only on the internal side with reps and with business owners, it also exists on the consumer side. Just in our society today, financing carries with it a certain level of trepidation, specifically in that debt usually equals bad. In this case, we're going to talk to you how you overcome that. So we're going to let everybody join for a couple of minutes. We'll do some introductions after we get the folks on, and we'll also be dropping in just a quick poll. As we go through this little waiting period, we also want to take the time to get you guys familiar with GoToWebinar. If you logged in on your computer or on your phone or iPad, whatever, you should be able to see that there's a question section. Feel free, drop any questions that you guys have directly into that section. So we like to get everybody familiar with it in a way, so just feel free to drop a little note in there letting us know where you're attending from today. It's always a fun thing to see where in the country you guys are coming from. And then if you have any questions throughout, like I said, we always love these things being intuitive, answering the questions that you need answered. Obviously, there's a reason you took the hour out of your day to join us. We want to make sure that you get those questions answered. So drop any of those in that question section. Again, feel free right now, just go ahead and say, hey, I'm calling in from Baltimore, or hey, I'm calling in from California, the Promised Land, or wherever it might be. So feel free to drop that in the question section. And then in just a minute, I'm going to go ahead. We'll give one more minute for people to start joining. And then what we'll do from there is I'm actually going to drop in a poll to have you guys answer. So give one more minute, and then we'll do some intros, and we'll get that poll going. So I'm going to mute myself for about 30 seconds, and then we'll get this thing rocking. All righty, we will get going on this. Got people from all over the country. It's always fun. New York, LA, San Antonio, North Carolina, all good places. The weather sucks here, so I'm sure it's nicer where you guys are at. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this poll in. This is just going to give us an understanding of where you guys are at. If you're using Leap, if you're using Foundation Finance, if you're using both, the other two, feel free to drop in and say, hey, I'm not using either one of you, but bring it on. What you guys are going to see throughout a lot of this is that there's a lot of really good details that we're going to touch on today. Some of those we'll obviously be expanding on in subsequent webinars, but if there is something specific, again, I can't stress this enough, drop it in. There's no dumb questions. We're always happy to answer whatever you guys need. The purpose of these is to really educate you guys. It's not designed to be an in-your-face sales pitch. So if it at all feels like that, feel free to call me out as well. But overarchingly, we want to provide you guys with the content you need to be successful. So I'm going to give you guys about another 10 seconds. We're at 72%. I know we can get all the way up. Come on, answer your questions. And let's get at least to 80% filled out. Nope, 72. Keep going. All right, 5, 4, 78%, 2 more percent. Come on, 3, 83. I'm good. I'm satisfied. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this thing, and we will get this thing rocking. So on the call today, I mentioned earlier that we have a rock star partner, Foundation Finance, on the call with us. So Amanda, feel free to jump in. give a little intro to yourself, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, James. My name is Amanda. I am the marketing manager over here at Foundation, and we've been partnered with LEAP now for a while, and both of our products just fit great together. So we're excited to be partners and sharing this information in this webinar today.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks again for joining. Steve's going to be joining us in just a minute, too. Steve's the founder and CTO of LEAP. One of the things that's really cool, and one of the reasons why we have Steve on the call today, or eventually we will have Steve on the call today, is because Steve not only built LEAP, but he also spent 8 years selling in the home. So when it comes to understanding the operations and understanding the fear that comes in, or even positioning on how to sell financing, it's something he did day in and day out for 8 years as one of the top reps prior to developing and creating LEAP. And he did that within an exterior remodeling environment. So he's been there, done that, been at the table, faced the same exact pains that you guys have as business owners, as well as the same pains that your reps feel when they go in and sell these things in person with customers. So as we move along, let's keep this thing going. These are the main points that we're going to cover today. So we're going to take a look at a high level of and recap part 4 of the LEAP Academy, which is really the power of financing, why it's such a good option to throw these deals out to customers. Again, one of the big misconceptions that we find is that financing doesn't sell more deals. The data that exists is the exact opposite. It is a resounding yes, you should be doing it, and there really isn't any downside from it. It just gives so many more options. The next little bit, the next 3 parts are really where the bread and butter of today's webinar are going to be focused. It's why do your consumers fear it? It's not just you. It's these consumers as well. We're going to touch on why they fear financing. We'll talk a little bit about businesses. So we talked to a lot of our users, both big and small at LEAP, to understand why they do or don't offer financing, to really get an understanding of where they're coming from. So we'll touch on why companies fear it. And then more importantly, we're going to give you guys solutions for both. And all this is ultimately going to be tied back to LEAP itself on how you can leverage a tool. But again, there's a lot of other takeaways that you can do from this, even if you're not using our systems. So hopefully, again, this answers your questions today. So first and foremost, let's touch a little bit on the financing as it exists in our industry. So at a high level, now this industry is booming. When you look at all the folks that are out there who hold some sort of mortgage, you're going to find that a tremendous amount of these individuals, and 63% here, have seen a massive increase in their home's equity. That doesn't mean they have a massive increase in cash on hand. So when you look at why financing is so successful, is people have the ability to tap into a lot of different funding sources. And a lot of that is extrapolated into a huge growth in our market. So when you look at it, we're talking a massive 300 billion improvement to where we're going. So there's a tremendous amount of money out there to be made. Financing allows you to tap into even more of that because not everybody has the cash to pay out of pocket, but they do have the resources in non-cash assets. As we go through, this even plays on that last statistic. While you guys might be receiving cash in hand or people might be putting stuff on their credit card, the reality is, on a deeper level, research shows that over 75% of home improvement projects over the $2,500 mark are financed in one way, shape, or form. It's pretty remarkable when you look at a statistic like that. A lot of people don't see this, but the reality is that is the case. You look at HELOCs, and you note as you look on that graph at the different levels of these jobs, the HELOC is one of the most commonly used, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily the best for the homeowner. Oftentimes, it might come with, say, a fixed income rate, or a fixed percentage. That's not necessarily going to say it's the best. So again, when you look at this, if 75% of deals out there are funded through some sort of financing option, there's no reason why you can't be the one to capitalize on that and give that person an option that better fits where they're at. So moving along. The other beautiful thing about this, and the next couple slides that we'll take a look at, show this in real life. The reality is when somebody uses financing versus cash, they're going to spend a hell of a lot more money than they would otherwise. And oftentimes that comes from the difference in saying, hey, well, if you want the windows plus the roof or plus the siding and plus that bathroom that you can't stand, or upgrading that bathroom you can't stand, we can do that, and it's only going to be another maybe $200 a month. That's a hell of a lot more palatable than, oh yeah, by the way, that's going to tack on another 15 grand. So when we take a look at this, you have to recognize that there's a lot that can be done when offering financing, and it usually adds to the total ticket price of your item. In this case, it's showing that it's 3 times the median amount. So if you're not offering financing with your deals, unfortunately, you're leaving a hell of a lot of money on the table. Now, we also identified, and this came through a lot of other research in the last series that we did, was that offering financing is going to drastically decrease the sticker shock. It increases your average ticket, as we just discussed. The other thing that we haven't mentioned yet is it also allows you to put deals through your pipeline faster. You know, offering financing is one thing, but if it takes you 3 calls and it's bouncing back and forth between your home office and you're not giving your reps the tools to close that financing on site, obviously the statistic doesn't play as well. But the reality is it does allow you to close more deals faster, especially when you leverage an integrated technology. And then lastly, it just looks professional and retains your customers. You have to be able to give your customers options. The more options that you have provided for them to pay for the jobs just speaks to the validity of your organization. In order to get financing or in order to offer financing, there is a vetting process for your organizations that typically has to happen. And Amanda, I bet you can elaborate on that way better than I can. But, you know, fly-by-night companies aren't going to be allowed to just randomly go out and offer financing to their customers. So when you look at that professionalism that it preaches, it's absolutely something that's considered and looked into by the customers. So Amanda, real quick, before we move on to the next slide, what kind of processes does it take for a dealer to come in or a contractor to come in and become a dealer of Foundation?
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. So all we need from you is to fill out our one-page application. We ask you a couple questions about your business, your location, the states you're doing business in, the type of products and services that you're selling. And then we ask that you provide any state contractor's license or business license, just to make sure that you're the real deal and that you're properly licensed for the home to do the job in the home. And then we can have you up and running in 24 to 48 hours. It's pretty quick. And then we have a really great training and onboarding process, so it's not like you're signed up and we throw you to the wolves to figure it out yourselves. But it's super easy, free and easy, I should say, to get signed up. And then we have a great onboarding process.
Fantastic. And again, going back to why that's so important, you guys, is when a customer asks, hey, do you offer financing? Or even when you go to a customer and say, hey, we have a lot of different ways that you can pay. You have credit card, you've got financing, you've got this, you got that. It shows that your company is not one of those fly-by-nights. Again, when doing a lot of the research on all of the various topics that we do for the LEAP Academies, the one thing that does constantly come up is you have those idiots out in the world that really taint the waters for all of you guys who are the legitimate business owners. And because of those jerks, you know, unfortunately, it has put a lot of folks on the, you know, on the defense, especially when going in and running these leads in home. So as a result, offering financing just allows you to show that you are not one of those fly-by-night companies and you have a lot to offer. These are just the next 2 slides are really just showing this in practice. You know, Bob was on our part 4, and if you haven't had a chance to look at it, part 4 is actually on our YouTube page. So feel free to check that out. But one of the things that he alluded to is that traditionally, then they've been around since the early 90s. When Paramount first started off, they weren't really doing a whole lot with financing, or they did it in a traditional way where they took a paper application on site, brought it back to the home office. There was a big delay on processing, blah, blah, blah. The long and the short of it is they didn't see a huge success or lift from it because of that. When they started integrating that in-home sales process to incorporate real-time decisions, like you can do with Foundation and like you can do with LEAP, they saw a drastic increase, not only in the average ticket price, which again, we're talking about $1,600. When I did the math on the back end, you know, they've only been doing this for about 3.5 months. And in that very short amount of time, even with minimal training, they saw the $1,600 per job lift. At the total number of deals they do per year, that alone was roughly a $6 million in revenue lift for Paramount. And again, when you look at this in your own business, that's a lot of money. The next thing that we saw from them specifically, and this is Katie. Katie does not only consulting with Paramount, but she also does it for the other, they call them the Big 12. So I'm sure you guys have heard of a lot of them. They're some of the largest organizations in our spaces. I think collectively the Big 12 represents over 600, 700 outside field reps. So they're massive organizations, typically north of 50 sales reps. So when you look at each one of these organizations, they also saw massive lifts in their retention rates. So you're not talking peanuts here. These companies saw drastic lifts just on how many deals they were retaining because of offering financing. And as a result of this, again, when you put this into dollars and cents, that was for Paramount specifically was probably somewhere in the ballpark of another $2 to $3 million in revenue just in retention. So really cool to see that come through as well. So now that we touched on that, we understand why it's so important. We understand the validity that it adds to your businesses. Now let's start to get into the meat and potatoes of this, which is why customers are truly fearing financing as a valid option for them to pay. So when we go through and we take a look at it, with all our research we did, it really comes down to three main points. It's, am I going to get the ROI if I pay for this job? And then two, what the hell are happening with interest rates? Our economy is doing really well right now, irrespective of political views, whatever. There's a lot of growth in our economy. It's awesome. The one thing that you start to find, though, is as you start to get these growths, the Fed is likely going to increase some of those interest rates. So a lot of consumers typically look at that and go, okay, well, if interest rates are rising, then the cost to finance for myself is going to go up. We'll get into that later, but it's not the case. And then lastly, debt. Debt is a really weird animal. Depending on the age bracket of your consumer, they see it in very different lights. Baby boomers are not going to look at it the same way Gen X does, and it's sure as hell not the same way millennials are going to look at it. And we'll see what that looks like in just a sec. So these are the three main reasons why we find that customers are really fearing the whole process of financing. And most of it all boils back to this unknown, or this concept of there are details that they just don't know about. So let's talk a little bit about ROI. These kinds of statistics, and when you look at this, it sounds like a pretty terrifying statistic, but again, when we get deeper onto the solution side of this, you'll see that it's not. That the equation for ROI is typically going to be some sort of return. The return is not necessarily all specifically directed toward money. There's always going to be some sort of balance between quality of life and tangible dollars and cents, but that all gets put over how much was put into the job. So if I spend $20,000 on this roof, am I going to have the most amazing peace of mind? Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that water isn't going to come pouring onto my face when I fall asleep at night. So, there's a lot of other pieces that you have to take a look at, but statistics like this exist. And, frankly, to consumers, when they do the reading on this, they don't think about all of those other pieces. So if I was to go out as an uneducated homeowner, not knowing how our industry works, not knowing the details of what goes into a job, I read a statistic like this, it's going to scare the crap out of me. So we have to really consider what's going through their brains to have a much better understanding of how we need to train our reps to counteract these kind of statistics. As we move on, I mentioned earlier, as interest rates rise with the Fed, one of the other things they have to consider too is that, all right, most of these loans or most of these financing options come with variable rates. Variable rates in an environment where rates are increasing, like the prime or LIBOR or whatever index that you're using, oftentimes what they're going to think is that, oh my God, if that goes up, then I'm screwed. What if I can't pay this off in a year? What happens with this? What happens with that? And then oftentimes it's basically their brain spiraling and they get sucked into this rabbit hole of what if. When in reality, as long as they stick to the schedule, which they're typically doing anyway because they have the credit they need to borrow in the first place, they're going to be fine. So these are just, again, going back to this whole concept, what's going through the brain of our consumers. The next one, this, I honestly, when I was doing my research for this webinar, I laughed my head off when I saw this, this chart. So there was a couple articles out there that stated, based on certain surveys completed, the millennial generation, which represents about 37% of all homeowners or all new homeowners, these individuals are more afraid of debt than they are of dying. And again, I'm sure some of you on your end, when you hear this, are also looking at this going like, wow, millennials are insane. Think of where they're coming from. So the majority of this generation got out of school sometime between 2006 through recent. And if you look at those folks that got out sometime between 2006 all the way to maybe say like 2010, 2012, they were having to deal not only with overwhelming student debt, they were dealing oftentimes with credit card debt on top of that, and then they had jobs that weren't paying enough for them to get down out of like minimum balances. So when you look at it, they had debt stacked on debt stacked on debt, and their future was dismal. You know, the homeowner market was difficult. You couldn't secure loans. Every one of them was having to rent, so they were basically paying into these assets that, you know, or they were basically paying other people's mortgages. And they saw that as just like a dead-end road, like, damn it, I'm never going to get out of this. But the reality is the economy has shifted. These millennials have started to get better and better paying jobs. Over the last 5 years, you see that there's a drastic increase, and millennials are actually the fastest pacing new homeowners that exist in our industry. So where they're coming from explains their mentality, though, is that debt is bad and debt is scary. So again, every time I look at this slide, and I've looked at it a number of times while preparing for today's webinar, it just makes me laugh. But we have to also recognize that there's an empathetic approach that needs to happen to overcome this kind of a fear. So moving along, now let's talk about you guys. Why do you guys fear this? And feel free, as we go through the next main topics for this section, if I miss something, or if there's something you guys want to address, drop it into that question section where you go, James, I can't believe you missed this. How could you? Feel free to drop that in that question section, and we'll absolutely address it at the end in the Q&A session. So as we move along, again, we did research on this. These are the three main things that we saw. First and foremost, we have to look at the operations, the overhead costs, and the different processes that exist, and why offering financing obviously adds to each one of those, and frankly scares some owners because it typically correlates back to bills, etc. Two, we got to look at training. All right, I guarantee if you look at the workforce that every single one of you guys attending today has, it absolutely can be a pretty daunting task to train some of our reps. You know, you're going to have people from all walks of life, age, technical abilities, etc. Some are amazing at sales. Some of them really suck at other elements that are involved in their job. But we have to figure out a way to give them the tools to be successful in the field. And then lastly, we got to talk about merchant fees. You know, I think one of the biggest things that everybody is consistently concerned about is margin. Merchant fees are obviously one of those things where it's a common misconception that it's going to absolutely murder your margins. We'll show you why there's a heavy balance that needs to be taken when looking at that. Plus, Amanda can also show you that there are options that are fee-free. So we'll dive into that in just a minute. So the overhead process and operations. These are the big things that we have to consider. Oftentimes, if you guys are offering financing currently and you're not leveraging some sort of technology, you've probably got a staff that's there to not only process your loans, to chase down documents, to go in and try and figure out options for those that get initially denied. And, you know, obviously they have to look into second chance lending, and then from there also hunt down people who initially sign up, but then for one reason or another drop off. So these, not only these finance, but also the retention teams that are designed to work with them. Two is you got to have systems. You know, when you talk about storing personal information, especially really, really, really valuable, pertinent, and secretive information for folks, this could ultimately make you and your borrowers vulnerable. You got to have the systems to securely store that. And obviously, there's a dollar amount that goes into that. The next piece is, depending on what financing options you use or what lenders you use, there's cash flow. For some of you folks that might not have the 50 plus user organizations, that you might be owner operator, you might have 5 reps, whatever it is, cash flow is always a concern. Cash is king, no matter what industry you're in. I come from the private equity space. You better believe cash was king in our business. So as you do any kind of startups and turnarounds, you got to make sure that you have the cash in order to reinvest it in the areas that are going to equate to growth. And then lastly, there's this old wives' tale, so to speak, of this really, really, I would say, dated mentality that, well, hey, this is the way we've always done it. Or, I got burned one time and, I didn't get a credit decision on site, or I got a maybe and I lost a deal as a result. Well, we have data upon data upon data stack that shows us that offering financing equates to more jobs. And it's just a matter of how you can get yourself in a position to see that realized in your own business. So again, all of these are very valid reasons why businesses tend to shy away or do a poor job selling it. So the sales training piece, again, I touched on this. I'm going to breeze through this piece. Reps come in all shapes and sizes, walks of life, all sorts of different levels of comprehension when it comes to complex details. And that's not me saying there's some smart, some dumb, but we all know that's the case. When looking at this, you have to make sure that you cater and address each and every one of these pieces. Not everyone's going to get it, but there's a really cool way in which you can simplify the processes to make it that much easier. So moving along, merchant fees. There's going to be fees depending on pretty much anything you do, but there's also ways around it. The other thing we also have to consider here is there's also legality. There's certain things that people can do to factor in the cost of financing into their margins. But the reality is, a lot of companies are just afraid to do that, or they don't have the data or even know where to look to get the data in order to tell them the cost of financing within their business. So that fear of that can honestly put them off and really hold them back from doing a lot of really cool, valuable things. So I'm going to pause for a sec. Does anyone have any other questions specifically related to those fears, or did I miss anything? All right, I think we've got everything that we need here. The other things that we'll start touching on, I know some of you guys asked some good questions around cash flows and also some of the other options for lending. So we'll definitely dive into that in just a little bit. Next, let's start talking about solutions for these things. Okay, so first we'll touch on the consumers, and then we'll dive into the actual companies themselves. And Amanda's going to help me out with this. Steve, I think we're still waiting on Steve to join in, but we should, unless Steve, are you on right now? Doesn't look like it quite yet, but should be good. We should be able to keep this thing rocking. So anyway, let's dive in, keep rocking. So let's solve for these consumers. So here are the 3 things that we talked about early on. So let's talk a little bit about ROI, interest rates, and carrying debt. So the first one we got to address is really the return on investment. One of the things that does not exist, and we dove into a lot of the different training modules that our partners are putting their reps through. And really one of the biggest things that exists in the industry is there's so much information and data coming from like the HGTVs of the world, coming from Remodeler Magazine, a lot of these big publications to show there are a lot of jobs out there that absolutely equate to ROI. But one of the biggest problems that we have, specifically when we take a look at how businesses are training their reps to counter these in the field, is they are not arming their reps with the tools and the trends from our industries. So they don't have the necessary statistics they need to say, hey, if you're going to redo that bathroom, bathrooms are the number 2 reason why someone's going to pay more for a home. They know that if they wake up in the morning and it doesn't refresh them for the day or get them excited to do whatever they need to do or make them feel good when they get out of that shower, if they hate going into that bathroom every day, I'll tell you what, my bathroom and my wife and I's master bathroom, we're in the process of redoing it now because for 3 years of home ownership, my wife walked in and there was a pedestal sink because the people who built the house in front of us built it in the 90s and thought it was a good idea to put a pedestal in the master bath. It was not. And I heard about it for 3 years before finally ponying up and saying, all right, I'm tired of it. Let's redo this thing and let's get what you want. That is a huge deal. It happens. I guarantee everybody on this call has at least figured out one of those in their own life. But you have to make sure that you give your reps the statistics they need to counteract and make their consumers feel good. The next bit is we also have to talk a little bit about carrying debt and interest rates. Not all debt is bad. Keep in mind, when we start factoring in ROI can mean that an investment can appreciate faster than your interest rates. Plus, when we look at these, there's a lot of different lending types. There's short-term options, there's long-term options. You also have to understand where your consumer is coming from. If that homeowner says, yeah, I plan on dying in this home, cool. Let's stretch these out and make it so that you can have access to the cash that you need to do whatever you want in your life and to have that peace of mind. A nest egg is a wonderful thing. Don't break it. But then if you also deal with customers that say, you know what, I'm flipping this house, I'm going to be out of here in 6 months. Cool. Let's tap into that. Let's make sure that we sell you the jobs that are going to likely equate to the best return. And let's be strategic about this. I'll upsell you wherever possible, knowing that you're going to be cashing out of this deal pretty quickly. So again, using that kind of insight and training your reps on how to sell for each one of those different scenarios is going to give you guys a leg up when going into your actual sales process in home. Amanda, on your end, what kind of options do you have, especially when it comes to the short and long term? Like, do you guys have a healthy mix of loan offerings through Foundation?
Yeah, so I mean, we offer 2 different types of loans: a revolving loan, which is much like a credit card, and also an installment loan, which is like a car loan. And you can get your customer a 12-month loan or a 144-month loan. So what we see a lot of contractors doing is bumping those payments out to 144 months, makes the sale easy. They're using a low monthly payment to sell to the customer. There isn't a prepayment penalty for the customer, so if at some point they can pay it off early, they can. But yes, absolutely. We have a lot of great different options for terms and payment options.
Perfect. So again, you guys, one of the things you got to consider too is if you're not fully versed in your existing lenders' options, so that you can understand, hey, if my customer is going to be in X, Y, and Z scenario, like I want to flip my home, I'm going to live in this for a while, or I have 5 to 10 years that I'm going to be in this home and then I'm likely going to move. I live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and one of the things that I run into all the time with my neighbors is they come in for some sort of governmental work and then in 5 years they move. So if you're running into any of those like transient type of environments, how do I put myself in a position where my reps know how to sell for each type of homeowner? Knowing that is going to put you in a really good position. Same thing if you're dealing with, I know we have a couple people joining us from the West Coast. In Los Angeles, you have a lot of people that also own multiple properties. What options do I have if it's a non-owner operate or a non-owner occupied? There's a lot of different things that you can do to figure out what options are available for you through your lender. And if you don't like the options that you have, guess what? We've got folks like Foundation integrated within Leap that not only allow you to have that seamless leverage of process, but it also gives you the tools that you need to close deals. So now I want to show you also what this looks like when you start going into Leap. There's a resource section baked in here. You can actually see it down in the bottom left-hand corner highlighted in green. It says resources. This is a place where you can put in any kind of sales materials that rep needs, not only your brochures, marketing videos, your sales pitch, all that other stuff, company history, before and after photos. You can also, and you can see it's kind of in that light blue. In there, it's really tiny print, so I apologize in advance if you guys are logging in on a phone or a tablet. But you can create really powerful infographics or link to different articles to pull up in front of a homeowner and say, hey, check this out. We did some research on this, and this is why I'm well versed to speak on the subject. This level of transparency and this level of interaction with a homeowner, when used in the field, equates to a massive lift in trust. So one of the things that we found is that when you go in and anecdotally speak about something and you don't actually have the data to back it up, people are skeptical. But when you show facts and sources and articles and other really valuable resources, which at Leap we're more than happy to share some of those with you, it just gives your reps the leg up when going to those homeowners to be perceived as the subject matter expert. If they are, trust goes through the roof, pun intended. So with that said, this is something that if you're not currently leveraging, and I really haven't seen this in any of our customers' accounts, it's something that you absolutely want to consider, is give your folks the stats and the trends they need to be successful. And Amanda, putting this back in your ballpark, one of the things that we have seen is that you guys do have really, really in-depth training on how to pitch and really how to understand the details of your loans. Are those materials available for these contractors to pull into their internal systems?
Absolutely. We have a lot of contractors and business owners that use our tools to help not only train their reps on our specific program, but on how to offer financing in different scenarios, how to overcome objections when offering the financing. So we've got a lot of great resources, videos, webinars, sell sheets, lots of different things for our contractors to use.
That's awesome. So again, you guys, you can take those in digital form, drop them straight into Leap, and give your reps the tools they need in the field to overcome all the key objections that you're going to face with any of the consumers. Thanks, Amanda. So now let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about solving for the companies. So again, going back, these are the three main things that we talked about: the overhead, the operation, the processes, the training, and the merchant fees. So let's dive into each one of these things. So there are more efficient ways to do work, and more efficient doesn't always equal redundancies. A lot of the customers that we deal with at Leap are family owned and operated. So oftentimes when we use terms or phrases like, oh, be more efficient, you don't have to have as many people on staff. A lot of people go, that's my cousin, or that's my daughter, or that's my son, or that's my brother, whatever it is. You look at that stuff and you go, all right, we're not saying that efficiency is necessarily going to equal layoffs or anything like that. There's statistics that are out there that show that if you give people the opportunity to be more productive and empower them to do bigger and more meaningful things, they will. There was a study done at Harvard that showed when you empower employees to do non-mundane operations and you give them the opportunity to think big and you challenge them and drive them to be successful, an empowered staff member can be 2.25 times more productive than another employee. So when you look at that, it's not to say that you're going to get less headcount. It's you can get more out of your existing headcount. In total honesty, though, there are certain operations that we do find when we go in and digitize their operations, we do streamline the processes, like adding financing directly through Leap, getting those decisions on site. You don't need the same number of staff as well. So there are both scenarios. One where you can empower those that have really been there and run your business and are just a core part of your functionality. Give them the tools they need to be more successful and do bigger and better things for you. Something that drives more revenue, something that thinks outside the box. Let them flex that brain. The other side of it is there are times where we run in and there's just bloated operations. In that case, guess what? Not only are you selling more deals and you're selling them at greater dollar amounts, you also save on overhead. You save on salary. You know, cutting one employee could be saving 40 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 60 grand a year, whatever that is. And when you look at that coming back, that also can be factored in to counteract any of those merchant fees, any of the other big fears that you might have. Having that amount of cash on hand every single month, not a bad thing. So you need to look at this pragmatically as a business owner and recognize that you can both empower and streamline your business, and it's a win-win. All of this comes from leveraging technology and pairing it with things like financing. The next thing we got to take a look at is we also got to talk about the efficiency piece. More efficiency plus more deals equals increased revenue. Efficiency doesn't always necessarily mean that every single deal that you're going to sell is going to be putting more margin directly through. But you have to look at the bigger picture. If you close 3 deals at 75% of what your margin was prior, and you only close 1.5 deals at 100% margin, which one's worth more? It's closing more. So putting that stuff out there, you have to recognize that there's a point at which you have to do the calculations to understand which is better. This is just one of the quotes that we have from one of our core partners. And NewPro is huge. NewPro is incredibly successful, and they were an early adopter of Leap. And you know, this is just one of the quotes that we have from a number of our customers that are truly setting the standards for best practices. You know, this is one of the other big things that we have to consider, is that if you can push more deals through your business faster, great. All of that equates to cash flow, increased revenue, more success for your sales reps, confidence, close rates go up. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, think about this basically just opening the spigot at the top. And at that point, just everything downstream is going to be impacted for the positive. So take a look at this stuff and think to yourself, how can I increase what I'm doing? And does it make me better? The next little bit let's take a look at is talk about sales training. You know, Amanda just mentioned that they have a lot of really valuable sales training materials for not only reps, but also for business owners. The thing that we have to understand too is that a lot of this comes through simplification. It's these main things that we have to take a look at. So the next thing we have to take a look at is if we simplify our financing, how can we do that? Leap has a really cool function built into not only the estimates tab, but we also have a very specific financing calculator that's built directly in. So whether you're using an integrated lender like Foundation, or whether you're using another lender that's not, like say a local credit union or something along those lines, every single option that you offer can be integrated directly into Leap, or at least be listed on there so that your reps can understand what they can sell. Obviously, whether or not you can apply for credit on site is going to be dictated by the deep integration like the one we have with Foundation. But more importantly, what we can do here, and I've circled it in red, is what we can do is we can actually start segmenting these things out. So in this case, I said, what happens if we have a $16,000 or $16,7500 deal, and that person's going to put $500 down. What the tool itself is going to do here is it's going to say, out of every one of the loans that I can offer for that dollar amount, what can I have and how would I bucket that? And in this, what I've done is I've simplified it, and I just said, great, we have 2 different options for homeowners. I've got no payment, no interest, and I've got low monthly payments. Which one would you rather? Let's start talking about your scenario. Are you planning on living in this home forever? Are you planning on selling in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you planning on doing X, Y, and Z? It gives your reps the tools to start setting up those different steps in the close. I mean, this industry is built on find an objection, overcome it, move on to the next. This allows you to be highly consultative, going through and really controlling the conversation at that kitchen table and maintaining an ownership over that momentum. So as we look at this, you can create whatever buckets you want. We can have the no-nos, we can have the low monthly payments, we can do deferred interest. You can create whatever buckets you want to make it as simple as possible for reps to grasp the concepts, because it's simply putting it in a term that they can understand, finding that lowest common denominator. The next thing we got to do is we also have to take a look at which option I should use. So the neat thing that you can see here is, and this, keep in mind, this is not necessarily the customer-facing view of our finance calculator. We have an option where you can turn off the merchant fees, so it can be customer-facing. In here, if you look down at the bottom, we've got our floor price. So for that $16,000 and change job, I know I cannot sell it below $9,700. On the right-hand side, the other circle that we have is I've got listed out every single one of my financing options. All right, there's two figures. The one in red is my merchant fee, which in this case, Leap has the ability to rank however you want. If you want to see it from low monthly payment for that homeowner all the way to greatest monthly payment, you can do that. In this case, we've sorted them from the least expensive merchant fee to my business to the most expensive. That way, when I go back in, I can see what it's going to cost my company, because as a rep, I need to know whether or not it's going to increase my margins or decrease my margins. So in this case, I know if I need to get this homeowner down at a certain dollar per month, and if that's the rate they choose, I have to factor in that $1,600 merchant fee. So the cool thing is when I select that merchant fee, or I select that option, you'll see that I chose that, hey, it's going to be $330 a month and we're going to do a $499. Great. You'll note that that floor amount in Leap automatically factors in that merchant fee. That way it's impossible for your reps to undercut your deals. It's pretty awesome. That way you know you've got peace of mind as a business owner that your reps are not selling something beyond profitability. So it's a way for you guys to absolutely control your margins. The other really neat thing that you can do as we move along with this is that every single one of your reps is not going to be created equal. You know that. There's some that are amazing at selling. You don't have to do anything to them. And they're just monsters. Put them in the field, turn them loose. They're going to convert everything they get their hands on. But then there's those other times where you look at, all right, I'm a growing business, or I have reps that are really good at customer interaction, but they tend to negotiate out a little bit more than I would like. There's a really unbelievably cool feature in Leap that allows you to artificially inflate the floor cost for every single one of your reps. So if you're concerned about fees and you're concerned about margins, great, control them. I can artificially inflate this floor so that my really good rep might see that 10.3. My new rep might see 15. So again, you can bake in whatever you need to account for that, the sales acumen or the sales ability for each one of your individual reps. We've actually done some really cool case studies on this to show that this feature alone can help increase the average ticket of your of each job you sell, let alone, this is coming from financing. So if you have any questions on this, I'd happy to go over this a little bit later on, or we can always walk you through what this looks like in practice in a demo. So this alone, typically what we see with companies when we go in, it's going to lift on average somewhere $500 to $1,000 just alone with that feature, not even including financing. So if you look at that, ask yourself the question, how many deals do I close annually, and what's my average ticket price? Put that together, multiply in that lift, and at that point you'll find that it's typically somewhere in a ballpark that's well north of the cost of Leap plus your financing, et cetera. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do just using that feature alone. So moving on, the other thing we also have to talk about too is just the operational efficiencies. What you're looking at on screen is actually the integration for Foundation Finance. The neatest thing about it is this is a direct plug into their loan application portal. So what you can do is all of the information that you see there is passed directly over from your CRM. So if you have one of the CRMs that integrates with Leap, your reps don't have to fill any of that customer information out. It automatically populates whatever you have in your CRM. That double data entry is just room for error, and honestly, it takes a stupid amount of time. So from that point, you can flip the iPad around and tell them, hey, go through and fill out all the details that are mandatory in red, hit next, and within seconds, you can go through the Foundation Finance portal and get an on-site credit decision. And one of the things that we found when talking with Bob is that we have a tremendous amount of success, or they've had a tremendous amount of success getting that credit decision on site as a means of preventing cancellations. If people feel they're that much farther in the funnel with a certain organization, they're far less inclined to drop out. I mean, they saw an 11-point lift in their retention rate, which equated to millions of dollars in retained revenue. So again, when looking at this for your own organization, having this level of integration with a lender just allows you to push deals through faster. It also makes it so that it takes a tremendous lift off of the shoulders of your, of your finance managers, et cetera. So moving along. This next bit, I'm actually going to turn over to Amanda, because one of the things that's a huge misconception, especially when it comes to merchant fees, is, oh my God, it's going to kill my margins. The reality is, no, it's not. There are ways in which you need to do the math to show, hey, I'm not only closing more deals, if my average ticket item is going up, the net gain far outweighs what you would be paying in merchant fees. The other thing to say is that fee-free options absolutely exist. So I'm going to shut my mouth, pass it over to Amanda real quick to talk you through how this works specifically at Foundation. But the reality is, you guys, if that is your biggest concern and that is just a deal breaker, options exist for you that can get you away from that merchant fee. So Amanda, I'm going to pass it over and I'll let you talk more about this.
So the number one thing that we hear right out of the gate with business owners is, how much is this going to cost me to offer financing? And their great thing about working with a company like Foundation is that we are able to give you first and second look approvals. And so that means we're able to approve your good credit customers and your not so good credit customers. So we approve customers with FICOs as low as 575. The other great piece about our program is that those approvals for your good credit customers are 100% payouts. The ones for your not so good credit customers, we share the risk and a few percentage points on the deal. But then going a step further, we also offer promotional programs that are free, so reduced interest rates, deferred payments. There are options for each tier or level of those customers that are no cost to you. So at the end of the day, you could essentially walk away for one of your good credit customers, offering them a lower interest rate, lower monthly payment, and it's no cost to you. So there are, as James said, ways to do this fee-free, but the smart contractors figure out a way to build in any fee they may incur with those customers that don't have such great credit. They build those into their margins and their bottom line, and it's really slick.
Awesome, and that actually is a perfect segue into our next bullet point. Is really when you look at how you can solve a lot of these things with Leap. The neat thing is we can show you where that data can come from to say, hey, these are the fees that I've incurred with some of my financing. You can easily bake in the cost of any of this stuff specifically to your deal. So when you talk about doing simple little things, so let's just say, I'll put you in a scenario. You find that you have a 1.5% total cost for your financing on any of your deals. The neat thing that you can do in Leap is, and I'll put you in a scenario if you weren't using Leap, if you wanted to do a 1.5% price increase on all of your products in any other system, what you're likely going to have to go through and do, unless, again, you're doing it on paper or like Excel or something which is just archaic, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to increase every single line item that you carry by 1.5%. The neat thing is in Leap, when you put in your products and pricing, all of that's controlled on the back end in an environment where in literally like 2 or 3 clicks max, you can go in and you can do a mass price update to everything and push that directly to the field. So if you run this exercise once a month, it would be the biggest nightmare in the world using any other tool. But with Leap, all you'd have to do, and you can do this daily if you want, or weekly, whatever, if you run those numbers every single month during that monthly reconciliation and say, you know what, the cost of finance for the organization was about 0.75%, cool. In the back end in Leap, in the admin portal, you can select this mass price update, add in your increase that you like, if it's that 0.75% or if it's that 1% or 3%, whatever the hell it is, you can add that in and it'll automatically update every single one of the prices. You can then push that directly to the field with one click. So if all of your reps are in the field, let's say one was 5 minutes away from running an appointment and they hit refresh right before walking in that front door, boom, all of your pricing is directly incorporated in. They don't even have to think twice about it. In fact, they don't even know the difference because they never understand or see that anything changed. So with that said, one of the neatest things that you can do on the back end in our systems is you can leverage in, like Amanda was saying, factoring in any of those costs of financing directly to the field and your price books. So it's just a very cool option that you have at your fingertips. The other thing we actually didn't put in this slide also comes down to the marketing efficiencies that you can gain. Going back one slide to this, like Amanda alluded, they do first and second look lending. So when you have the opportunity to do both first and second look lending, it gives you the ability to market to a much larger socioeconomic demographic. So instead of targeting very specific areas, you can actually market to a broader audience. The beauty of that is a lot of times, instead of going for those tier 1 or tier 2 credit in environments or neighborhoods, you can also start expanding yourself into some of the other areas that, again, it might be a little bit of a challenge and you might have some denial rates, but at the same time, you're going to be going out and acquiring more deals, more leads, etc., lowering your overall cost per lead for marketing. So again, when looking at this, there's just a lot of other opportunity for you guys to expand your business when you have integrations with lenders that offer first and second look lending like Foundation. So moving along, the other thing we also have to recognize too is that oftentimes one of the things that we see, and this is, I would say, arguably one of the biggest areas of I would say failure for organizations when training out their sales staff and even when offering financing as a business, it starts with you guys. If there's any sort of hesitation from your end, or if you don't personally approach this with some sort of gung-ho mentality, overcoming the objections of your internal staff the same way they would the objections of a homeowner, the problem you're going to run into is it'll never get sold from day one because you don't want it to. And if that's the case, you have to be okay with the results that you're gonna obtain. When we look at individuals like Bob, again, going back to the slide that we talked about earlier, the reality is they did not push this stuff early on. They did not believe in it. And when they finally said, you know what, based on the interactions with the other members of the Big 12, they said, we've seen so much success coming from those other companies. And the quote from Bob was actually, we realized, or we got smart enough to realize that we needed to get out of our own way and just embrace the change. So for them, their biggest takeaway was, well, let's lean into this. Let's be the agent of change. Let's be that catalyst. And frankly, if you guys don't do this, or your sales managers don't do this because it's just not something they want, or and again, I've heard this several times when even dealing with some of our partners, is you have a sales manager come in and just be like, nah, I'm too busy right now. I don't want to deal with that. That level of mentality and that kind of a detractor is not going to help you build your business. You need to lean in, and if this is something that you guys see as a viable option for growth for you for the future, nip that in the bud right away. Push it, kill it, do whatever you need to do in order to make that work. So that's really where I'm going to leave you guys with the takeaway for the day is you are that agent of change. We gave you a lot of good tools for success today. I'm going to open it up now. I know we're going to do some of the Q&A, so I'm going to go through some of these, and Amanda, maybe you can help me touch on these. Is how do you guys work, especially when it comes to managing some of the cash flows? Some of the questions that we have in here were, well, are the options that I use for financing going to make it so that I have to do the entire install before getting paid out? Or what does it look like for you guys, and how does it typically work on your end for funding of the loans? Oh, all right, Amanda, are you there?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can. We're good.
Cool. Yeah, so our funding process happens relatively quickly. Once you complete the job for your customer, we're going to pay you via ACH right into your bank account. It's really that simple. We make sure that we have everything we need from you in terms of the customer's loan docs and stuff like that, but otherwise it's pretty quick. We put the money in your bank account right in your pocket.
Awesome. So again, quick funding schedules like that obviously can give you a lot. You guys have to, on your end, understand where you are at as an organization to understand what that balance of cash flow is going to look like. So I mean, there are options out there that you need to research and understand exactly what that is. I would recommend having a conversation with the folks at Foundation to understand how they would best fit within your organization. Again, if you have any other questions, we're always happy to help as well. The other question that I got, and I'm just reading this real fast. One of the questions was, here we go. It says, are there offers that we can automatically upload into Leap, or do we have to go in and turn on, off some of the others, et cetera? So one of the neat things is when you input all your financing options directly into Leap, it looks like a spreadsheet. Typically, that's what every single organization is working off of now currently anyway. The ease of use that we've brought to it is all you basically have to do is start bucketing these with a different type of header. So when you go in, again, you can take every one of the financing options that you use for any lender that you offer, throw each one of them into those buckets and clearly organize those in a pattern. Like it's almost like a linear training pattern. So it says, hey, rep, when you go out in the field, start with this. You know, ask this series of questions. It'll give you the understanding of whether you want to use a deferred interest, whether you want a no-no, or whether you want low monthly payments. From there, the next question you can ask is, okay, let's talk about your monthly payment. So ask these series of questions to start narrowing down the next steps, et cetera. So there's a lot of ways that you can then start baking in any of those training steps and processes specifically built around what shows in the app. The next question we got was, does Foundation offer an iPad app approval in the home? Absolutely, it's called Leap. So when you look at that, the neat thing is Foundation lives in our credit application section. So all you have to do is if you are an integrated, or excuse me, if you are a dealer of Foundation's options, or just a Foundation in general, what you can do is you can not only put in that finance calculator all of the available options, what you then have access to is the lending portal. So if you have, and this is one of the only things that does require connectivity to get that on-site decision, if you have that connectivity and you're using your iPad with Leap, all you have to do is fill out all the details of that application, hit next. The customer will sign on a couple dotted lines using their finger on the iPad itself. When you hit submit, boom, it hits Foundation system and you'll get an approval, denial, or pending. So you can get a decision on site in virtual real time. So the answer of that is yes. And next question. Does the calculator give you pre-approval options with Foundation? The calculator option is not necessarily designed to give you pre-approval. Pre-approval would show you, and maybe I'm misinterpreting your question. It's going to show you, should you get approved, this is where you're likely going to come in. Obviously, you don't know that person's FICO score when going into that calculating, or that initial just estimation, if you will. But that's why that's built into the estimate section. At that point, it's more of a discussion point for you to start selling financing the same as you would, say, a window. It's to say, hey, let's talk about the things you want done to your home, what your budget is, and let's try and find the balance to get you where you need to be. From there, all of this is going to come back and be dependent on their credit score. So it's going to show you what that pre-approval would look like. And yes, that can be baked in so you can see those calculations based off of Foundation's options. It will do the same with any other lender that you carry and that you put into that finance calculator. The beauty of it, though, is, again, when you take it to that full-on credit application, you have them apply on site. Foundation can work with a big range of FICO scores for both your Tier 1, Tier 2 credit as well as, Amanda, you mentioned they can go as low as $575, right?
That's correct.
Cool. Awesome. So again, having that ability to work with that big range is pretty awesome. Okay. Yep, I answered your question. So thanks, Nigel. I appreciate that. So you guys, without further ado, we ran a little bit over time. I appreciate you guys staying on. We're going to call it for the time being. The next thing we want to understand is, or let you guys know, is we will be reaching out to each and every one of you to see how we can help. So if you registered for this and did attend, we will be reaching out to you guys individually. If you want more information on how to work with LEAP specifically, you can always shoot us an email at info@leaptodigital.com. Same thing with Foundation. If you're interested in learning more about their programs and becoming a partner of Foundation, or if you're already an existing member of Foundation, you can always reach out at sales@foundationfinance.com. They'll be glad to help you out. Again, they've been a long-standing partner of ours, and we're really, really grateful to have them built into our system. So anything you guys need, we're always happy to help you out. Again, what we'd love to do too is show you how the two of these can work in tandem. Obviously, we go a lot deeper than just a high-level webinar, but we can do all that in a one-on-one demo format. We'll reach out to all of you to see how we can help. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. Was there anything you wanted to leave the audience with parting thoughts? Obviously, this is also going to be put up on our YouTube page as well.
No, I don't think so. I think we covered everything, and I think our partnership has allowed a lot of contractors to, use this to their advantage. So, if you are a Foundation dealer on the webinar but not signed up with LEAP, let's get you integrated. Let's talk about LEAP. If you are on the LEAP platform but not signed up with Foundation, let's talk. Let's get you signed up, and then we can really flip the switch and get you offering Foundation financing on the LEAP app.
Agreed. It's a really cool integration, you guys. They've really leaned into this partnership, and it's a very seamless process. So if it's not something you've seen in action, we're happy to run you through a demo of that. We're also happy to make the introductions with our with Amanda and her teams, and you can always go directly to them at sales@foundationfinance.com. So thank you so much for joining, Amanda. Thank you again, as always. Feel free to come to our website for whatever you guys need. Any questions, you can always reach out to us directly. There'll be another couple series of this webinar coming up. We're going to be doing one next week on adoption rates, et cetera, with our partners over at Long Roofing and Long Fence. Pretty cool stuff to come. So thank you so much for joining. Anything you need, we're always happy to help. Take care. We'll talk soon. Thank you.